Translator, Rev Reader, Hen Yi. 1,000 helminth. Ling Han's brows knitted tightly, a grave chill surfacing upon his face as though a cold wind had swept through his heart. Move at once. This monstrous thing cannot be defeated through brute force. Why? Li Fengyu truly lived up to his reputation as a chatterbox. Even at such a perilous moment, curiosity still clung to him like a shadow. Your sister, run first! Ling Han's origin power surged like a rising tide. With a sweep of his sleeve, a vast hand of energy spread forth, seizing everyone except Wenren Qian. Qian as he turned and fled, taking a wide detour around the dreadful place. Wenren Qian did not hesitate either. If even Ling Han and Jia Ming had chosen to withdraw, how could she foolishly attempt to stand her ground? Behind them, the long worm gave chase with terrifying swiftness. More than 100 legs moved in eerie unison, stepping in perfect rhythm. Its speed was astonishing, and the distance between it and Ling Han's group rapidly shrank. You too! Ling Han spread out the giant hand of origin power once more, grabbing Wenren Qian as well. Then he unleashed the thunderclap ninth heaven. Z! Blinding white lightning burst forth across his body. His figure instantly accelerated like a bolt of heavenly thunder, widening the distance between them and the monstrous worm at a shocking pace. At his current speed, he could rival a heaven-tier elite. Even while carrying several people at once, his velocity could still soar to the heights of the deity transformation tier. At last, the long worm finally gave up its pursuit and turned back along the path it had come from. Returning to its original ambush point, it slipped into a dark hole and swiftly vanished. Only then did Ling Han slow his movements and set everyone down. Brother-in-law, why did we run? Li Fengyun was still brooding over this question. Ling Han sighed softly and said, 1,000 helminth never appears alone. Since one showed itself, there's another one? Li Fengyu hurriedly finished his sentence. Ling Han shook his head and replied gravely, there's a whole bed of them. Pooh! Li Fengyu spat in shock and exclaimed, a bed of those disgusting bugs actually exists? Ling Han nodded slightly and explained, 1,000 helminth. At least 1,000 of them sleep in a bed together. Why else would they bear such a name? The one we saw earlier was already at the middle stage of the deity transformation tier. Creatures like these have terrifying regenerative abilities. They are even more troublesome than high-level deity transformation tier elites. If we stirred up their entire nest, that would truly be entertaining. Then hurry up, let's go. The girls' expressions turned ghastly pale. They clearly despised such creatures above all else. Even Hu Niu rarely lost her enthusiasm for battle, yet this time she showed none of her usual zeal. The creature had looked far too disgusting for her to stomach. Thus they circled around the area before continuing their pursuit of the sun. Aang! Suddenly, ahead of them, a beast's roar erupted like thunder rolling across the heavens. Even the earth beneath their feet trembled faintly. Ling Han listened carefully before saying to the others, Heaven tier! It truly is extremely dangerous here, everyone exclaimed one after another, yet no one turned back. The more perilous the place, the greater the hidden fortune within. Without the resolve to face mortal danger, why would anyone venture into such lands? They might as well return home and live out ordinary lives. Of course, none of them intended to throw their lives away foolishly, so they detoured around the location from which the beast's roar had emerged. Earlier, when those shattering void tier elites entered here, they didn't even bother slaughtering these vicious monsters in passing, Li Fengyu muttered. Ha! Ling Han chuckled lightly. When those vicious creatures sensed the presence of a shattering void tier expert, would they even dare breathe loudly? Just like how we must avoid a heaven tier beast, these monsters would naturally tuck their tails between their legs when facing a shattering void tier elite. After traveling for some time, a strange grassland appeared before them. The grass there was an especially deep shade of green, so vivid that it seemed entirely out of place within the surrounding environment. Li Fengyu was about to step forward, but Ling Han suddenly stretched out a hand and grabbed him, forcibly dragging him back. Brother-in-law, why are you pulling me? Li Fengyu asked in confusion. Ling Han sighed and said calmly, if you continue speaking nonsense, I'll throw you over there. Li Fengyu was finally alerted. His eyes widened as he asked, this grassland isn't normal? You try it yourself. Ling Han laughed lightly and tossed him forward. Help! Li Fengyu immediately cried out, soaring into the air. At that instant, the deep green grassland suddenly changed. The lush grass abruptly shrank back into the earth. As the ground trembled faintly, pang! A massive hand suddenly burst forth from the soil, reaching out to seize Li Fengyu. What the hell? Li Fengyu shouted in shock. His palm transformed into a saber as he slashed downward at the giant hand. Although he was a chatterbox, his talent was indeed remarkable. Otherwise, how could he have entered the Restore Heaven Academy? With his full strength unleashed, martial intent surged forth. Saber chi intertwined like veins spreading through the air, its power astonishing. Peng, peng, peng! The saber chi struck the enormous hand repeatedly, yet it failed to inflict even the slightest injury. It did not even slow the hand down as it continued reaching toward Li Fengyu. Ling Han snorted coldly. His fingers merged together like a sword as he slashed toward the giant hand. Shoo! A streak of sword ray pierced the heavens. The massive hand no longer dared endure the attack carelessly. It clenched into a fist and collided head-on with the sword ray. Peng! Martial intent clashed violently as swordlight exploded outward, dazzling like blossoming flowers. Li Fengyu hastily fled back, his body trembling slightly from fright. Hong! A gigantic figure burst forth from the ground. It was a giant nearly 30 meters tall, with deep green grass growing across its entire back. Clearly, the creature had been lying buried beneath the earth earlier, and grass had even grown upon its body. Stinking golem! Daring to ambush your uncle! Li Fengyu shouted angrily. Then he turned toward Ling Han with a flattering grin. Young Master Han! Exterminate it! This was a golem whose aura was terrifying. It was a being of the deity transformation tier. Ling Han laughed loudly. He summoned his own golem and said, Big fellow, this is your meal. Go eliminate it. When the rock spirit saw another of its kind, it immediately let out a roar. Yet the sound was not one of joy. It was a challenge. Living spirits like them were born and nurtured by heaven and earth. Their growth was a constant battle of devouring one another. Seeing their own kind never brought delight, only rivalry. Ang! The giant golem roared as well, but its roar was far more thunderous than the little rock spirits. A hurricane of sound surged outward, sending everyone's hair flying in disarray. The rock spirit instantly lost all its previous spirit. It shrank back behind Ling Han's back, making woo-woo noises like a frightened puppy. Earlier, it had eagerly wanted to devour the other golem. Yet once the giant golem revealed its true might, it realized that the opponent was far more ferocious than itself. Ling Han laughed heartily. The rock spirit was becoming increasingly human-like. At this point, the fellow resembled a puppy far more than a rock spirit, wagging its tail pitifully, bullying the weak yet fearing the strong. However, the Black Tower had already produced its first spirit stone, which the rock spirit had refined. With 2 more pieces, this fellow would be able to step into the spiritual infant tier. The giant golem stared fixedly at Ling Han, or more precisely at the rock spirit hiding behind him, though Ling Han's figure blocked its direct view. Its mouth gaped open. If it possessed saliva, it would surely already be drooling. To the giant golem, the rock spirit was an exquisite meal. It had no intention of wasting time with unnecessary words. It immediately lunged toward Ling Han. In its eyes, Ling Han was nothing more than an ant. It would simply roll over him without hesitation before devouring the rock spirit, using it as the cornerstone to ascend to a higher realm. The rock spirit was clearly no match for the giant golem. Thus, Ling Han stepped forward and personally faced this powerful opponent. Translator, Reverie Editor, Henye Peng. Ling Han and the colossal stone golem clashed with a single earth-shaking blow, and his figure was hurled backward like a furious arrow loosed from a divine bow. His battle prowess could rival a high-level deity transformation tier elite. Yet this did not mean his raw power could truly contend with any deity transformation tier existence. Least of all a rock spirit. This creature was a living spirit born from heaven and earth itself, a being undoubtedly standing at king level, its strength terrifying and its battle might astonishing. And yet Ling Han dared to meet the giant golem head-on, clearly harboring confidence in victory. His physique was far too formidable. Though the impact drove him backward, his body remained completely unharmed. His flesh rivaled 8th tier rare metal in hardness, and at the very least could not be injured through brute strength alone. With a resounding battle cry, he surged forward once more, his fighting spirit undiminished. The giant golem let out a furious roar. In its eyes, Linghan was nothing more than a tiny speck. So how could such a small figure contend with it when a single strike should have crushed him into dust? Ha ha! Come! I'll beat you into submission, big fellow! Linghan laughed loudly as he and the giant golem continuously exchanged blows. Only a body of terrifying strength would allow such reckless combat. Otherwise, even a true deity transformation tier cultivator would never dare to clash physically with a rock spirit in this manner. After all, rock spirits, also called golems, were renowned throughout the world for their overwhelming physique and astonishing regenerative ability. Among beings of the same tier, the only existences qualified to exchange blows with them were likely gold spirits. Linghan had cultivated the diamond body, which in essence could indeed be regarded as the body of a gold spirit, and even one that surpassed it by a great tier, Wenren Qian. Qian stared in stunned silence. She knew Linghan was monstrous and that his physical abilities could rival Jiaming's, yet she had never imagined he could actually exchange blows with a worldly spirit like a rock spirit. She had still underestimated this young prodigy. Small Rock was nearly beside itself with excitement. So thrilled it almost cried out that its master was too incredible. It was already itching to devour a feast, and if it could merge the other party's rock essence with itself, it could certainly advance and perhaps even reach the level of high-level spiritual infant tier. The giant golem grew furious beyond measure and suddenly let out an enormous roar at Linghan. Aang! The sound surged like ocean tides, visible even to the naked eye. Cracks instantly spread across Linghan's clothing, and his entire body seemed pressed downward into the mud, making it extremely difficult for him to move forward. Shh! Are you trying to make this young master run around naked? Linghan cursed angrily. His powerful physique could only protect his own body and could never extend such protection to his clothes. Under the golem's roar, they nearly disintegrated completely. He hurriedly circulated origin power to form a shield around his body, then summoned the demon birth sword. With a slash, he split apart the incoming sonic wave and charged forward with imposing momentum. The giant golem also became serious. As it thrust both hands forward, rock spikes erupted forth. With its immense power and the hardness of its body, the rock spikes it created were undoubtedly extremely sharp and fully capable of threatening even Linghan's physique. The battle instantly escalated as both sides unleashed greater battle prowess and clashed again with ferocious intensity. However, the demon birth sword was, after all, a 10th tier spirit tool. Under Linghan's relentless strikes and slashes, the giant golem's rock spikes were continuously deflected and shattered, scattering fragments everywhere. Small Rock darted back and forth like a happy dog, catching every rock spike and crunching them happily between its teeth. Each fragment contained a trace of the giant golem's rock essence, and for the little golem, this was an incomparably nourishing tonic. It cried out excitedly, completely unable to restrain itself. The giant golem was filled with towering fury. It had yet to enjoy a proper meal, yet a layer of its own body had already been peeled away. This was truly an unbearable loss. Nevertheless, it refused to retreat. After all, Linghan's strength had not yet reached the level where it would feel fear. With a furious roar, its body began to swell rapidly, growing from 10 meters to 30 meters tall, and still continuing to expand. At the same time, the entire ground nearby began to sink downward. Hong. Long. Countless rocks and sand shot into the sky as though an enormous pit had suddenly opened beneath the earth. Linghan was astonished and exclaimed, as expected of a child of the earth, able to draw upon the power of the land itself and infuse it into its body, merging with the earth to strengthen its physique. Sigh. Why doesn't my rock spirit possess such abilities? Small Rock glanced at Linghan with grievance written across its face. Of course it wanted to be that impressive, but its cultivation tier had not yet reached such heights. It was completely unable to draw forth the soul of the earth and merge it with itself. Everyone hurriedly rose into the air, for remaining on the ground now seemed extremely dangerous. Hong! The giant golem once again hurled a punch at Ling Han. Its fist was as massive as a mountain peak. If someone were struck by it, not to mention a deity transformation tear cultivator, even heaven tear lights would spit blood violently. Weight combined with speed could produce terrifying destructive power. Why were worldly spirits said to be even more terrifying than king-level beasts? This was their reason. Shoo! Ling Han transformed into a streak of lightning and evaded the attack. At the same time, he swung his long sword and unleashed a sword ray that slashed toward the giant golem. Pooh! The sword ray entered the golem's body and sliced off a huge chunk of its form. However, the creature's current size was simply too enormous. Losing such a piece did not harm it in the slightest. Immediately, it drew more rocks from the earth to repair the missing portion, restoring itself to perfect condition in the blink of an eye. This gigantic body was equivalent to armor that could regenerate automatically. As long as the earth remained beneath it, the golem could constantly replenish itself. To exhaust the entire earth, how could that possibly be done? How do we fight this now? Li Fengyu muttered. The giant golem stood in an invincible position, able only to defeat others while never truly being defeated. Ling Han continued dodging while contemplating deeply. To defeat a golem was actually quite simple. Make its feet leave the earth. If they fought in the sky, the golem would no longer be able to draw replenishment from the ground. The problem was how to accomplish such a feat. A worldly spirit like this was by no means foolish. Then there was only one option. Annihilating Dragon Star Arrow, or 10,000 techniques, returned to 1, to directly extinguish its soul spirit. For as long as it was a living spirit, it must possess a soul spirit. Yet the golem was so enormous. How could one possibly determine where its true body lay? Ling Han activated the Eye of Truth and gazed toward the golem. Instantly, the creature appeared in an entirely different form within his sight. Its energy form. The majority of its body was dim, because those portions were merely rocks drawn from the earth. Yet beneath its left waist, a small round point shone brightly like a tiny sun, the rock spirit's essence. Its origin source, its origin of life, its heart of stone. Ling Han drew out the sunset bow and mounted a sharp arrow forged from 8th tier rare metal. Activating the annihilating Dragon Star Arrow together with Thunderclap 9th Heaven, he fixed the Eye of Truth firmly upon that glowing point. Go. His fingers suddenly released the string. The arrow shot forth like lightning, bound with crackling thunder, instantly accelerating to the utmost limit. The arrow pierced into the giant golem's waist and exited from the opposite side. The giant golem stared fixedly at Ling Han. Then the rocks covering its body began to crumble piece by piece, shattering and collapsing until it instantly turned into a mound of broken stone. Among the shattered rocks lay a stone the size of a human head, clear as jade and flickering with gentle radiance. The heart of stone! Ow, ow, ow! The small golem lunged forward excitedly, crawling on all fours like a dog. It seized the heart of stone in its mouth and scurried back to Ling Han's side, rubbing its head against him in a flattering manner. Ling Han could not help but fall speechless. Why was this fellow becoming more and more like a dog?